guys, and welcome back to my channel, Blue Nose Trading. My name is Tori Solis, and today I'm going to be using a rock tumbler to recycle some of the pots I have that were really damaged to the point where the glaze was so bad that they're not usable. These are non-functional pieces. I got a rock tumbler for Christmas from my husband because he is amazing. This is a Darcy & Darcy rock tumbler. I've never used it before. I'm not going to be doing this like you do normal rocks. I'm going to smash up this pottery using a towel and this hammer, and wear safety glasses so that shards of pottery don't fly into my eyes and blind me. Let's just smash these pots up. But like I said, I'm not going to be using this rock tumbler like you would use a rock tumbler to tumble like gemstones. Normally you would start at like a really coarse grit, and then you would clean the medium, the rocks, and you would add another grit in it, and slowly your grit would get finer and finer as you were tumbling rocks to polish them. I have different goals here, so you're going to see me running this experiment in a weird kind of way, and I know that this is not how you would normally use a rock tumbler. So I'm going to do this one grit at a time. I'm going to start with my at 120 over 220, which I'm pretty sure comes out to about a grit 3, and I'm going to start it at 24 hours, and then I'm going to increase the time and get it to see where I want it, and then I'm just going to run a standard through the 4 grits that came with the rock tumbler itself to see if any of those are going to get me closer to what I'm trying to achieve. I'm just trying to smooth these out to where they look nice. They still have most of their glaze on them if possible. I don't want to tumble off all the glazes, and then I want to use them as pieces in my potting medium for my plants, so to help add drainage to the bottom or to decorate the top to hold in moisture. I'm going to use these in my horticultural practices. So up first I have the 120 out of 220 silicone carbide that I just kind of bought in bulk online. I'm going to fill this up with 2/3 of rocks and then some water, 1 tablespoon of the tumbling medium, this silicone carbide, and I'm going to let it go for 24 hours. After 24 hours, I'm going to come in and I'm going to check on it. I've got a strainer here so I can rinse out the rocks and see what they look like at this point. After only 24 hours of grinding, these are not anywhere close to where I want them, but I was just kind of getting my bearings as to how efficient this was going and how fast this was going to grind it down. So I'm going to set these back on here and give them another 3 days of tumbling, and after 3 days we're going to come back and check it, and for you it's going to be like less than 2 seconds. Because, you know, YouTube magic. So here we are. After 3 more days of tumbling, we're going to look at what these first ones in that 120 over 220 silicone carbide are looking like. And it seems like this is a lot closer to where I'm wanting it, but maybe just a couple more days. I'm not going to give them a couple more days because I've got other trials to run, but just noting mentally. Now I'm going to go through the grits that came with it. They came v 1, 2, 3, and 4 grit. I'm pretty sure the grit that I'm using is something close to number 3, so we'll just start at number 1. We'll load up the tumbler as we did before with the, 2/3 of ceramic and some water, and we're just going to put the whole packet of grit in here because I'm assuming it's measured out for me. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give each of these 3 days to see how they affect it. I'm assuming grit number 1 is going to take a lot off of it. Let's check it out and see how grit number 1 after 3 days did on these stoneware pieces. These are all fired to cone 6, by the way. Cone 6 glaze fired stuff that just didn't come out how I wanted it to. Just rinse off this tumbling medium. These are still surprisingly rough for what I was expecting, but I guess that's the way of it. Don't love that, but pretty rough after 3 days of tumbling. I'm kind of surprised how rough these are, so just for the sake of my own curiosity, I am going to go ahead and give it another 2 days. So after 2 more days of tumbling with grit number 1, let's see what we've got here. Just rinse off the dusty tumble grime. And these are still surprisingly rough compared to what I'm looking for. So grit number 1 doesn't seem like it's it for my purposes. And again, I'm not doing this like a regular rock tumbler. So let's load up grit number 2 and see how grit number 2 does after about 3 days of tumbling. I think that grit number 2 is probably going to be better. Grit number 1 might just be too coarse for where my ceramic pieces are at. This took weeks. Y'all are lucky it's in fast forward for you. Alright, 3 days of tumbling on grit number 2. We're going to open this up. Also, a paint key, I have learned, is the best way to open this up. It's the little thing you use to open lids of paint. And grit number 2 after 3 days looks really, really great. This is the kind of smoothness that I'm looking for. I think it may have taken off a little more glaze than I would have liked, but that's the best result that we've gotten so far. Grit number 2 for 3 days. Next up is grit number 3 for 3 days. I think this is about the same as the silicone carbide 120 over 220 that I'm using. I'm guessing that that is about what grit number 3 is in this kit. Set it up here and give it 3 days to think about itself. Alright, so here we are after 3 days on grit 3. This is looking pretty good. It took off a bit less of the glaze than grit 2, which I like, but it's not as smooth and round, but you know, you give and take to see if we can find the perfect medium here. Let's load it up with grit 4 for 3 days. Grit 4 isn't really even a grit. It's kind of a final polish, and I don't really think it's going to do much to this ceramic. It's not coarse at all. So we're just doing this for fun. Expectations are low for grit 4 for 3 days, but here we go. Let's get grit 4 is looking really foamy and white, which is kind of different than the creamy grays of the other one. And kind of how I expected, it didn't really do anything. It's it smoothed out the edges a little bit. Okay, I've gathered everybody here and we're going to look over each one. This is grit number 1 for 3 days. We're just going to look at it and the textures that it has. It's a little rough on the edges. It has a little glaze left on it still. Overall, I don't think that grit 1 is the winner. Up next is grit number 2 for 3 days. I honestly think that this one was the best results as far as right out of the bag for 3 days. It's smooth. It took a bit more of the glaze off than I wanted, but the overall smoothness of these was pretty much what I'm looking for. Any glaze that was inside of a texture stayed with these, and that looks pretty cool. Up next is grit 3 for 3 days. Number 3. And this one also looks pretty good. It left a lot more of the glaze on it and it smoothed out the edges. I think what I might end up trying later is probably like grit 3 for 5 days. I think that might be something good. And I have a lot of what I think is about grit number 3. Up next is grit 4 for 3 days, which was basically just a polish. It didn't really do much overall to these. It just kind of smoothed the edges a little bit. So that was this science experiment that I ran, and thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you'd like to help support my channel, you can find me at patreon.com/BlueNoseTrading. If you'd like to see weekly art video, be sure to subscribe to my channel on YouTube, Blue Nose Trading. Remember that you are important, drink lots of water, and I will see you guys next week.